no secret that I love everything related to space. We've had astronauts on the show. I've talked about various missions, and as a kid being so fascinated by it. I cannot tell you how fortuitous it is that we are having Wayne Scott Harrell on with us, because he's written a book called Moon Luck that just pulls you in. Warning, you will not be able to put this novel down. So, Wayne, thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thank you very much, Kate, for opportunity to share with you and your listeners today.
Yeah, I kind of got lost in space, so to speak, when I started reading your book.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's it. That's the goal. That's the goal of the writer, for sure. So let's talk about why you wrote this. What made you decide you were going to put this together?
That's a very good question. It's very complex because I've had quite a few years of experience, but it goes back starting 40 years ago when I was a Coast Guard officer engineer and working with a fellow engineer that I've now known, as I said, 40 years. And he recently wrote a book, 2 books actually, one about his life growing up in Little Italy, and then one that he wrote in a kind of a romance murder mystery in Tuscany. Now, I spend quite a bit of time in Italy. My wife was born there. We have a home there in the Alps, and I just love anything that talks about Italy. But I was a little disappointed. It was a great story, but I was disappointed that he didn't make more of an effort to describe the Tuscan region in his book. And I said, well, if I was going to write a book, I would be a little more descriptive about what it is. And just hit me that I could do a really good job of talking about living on the moon. My experiences in the past, I've worked and traveled around the world, worked in other countries. So I've got to know many people all over the world. And I made this book very much an international story. I involved characters, about 24 characters of people that I've known in different countries that all come together. And it's just something I wanted to do. My experiences in life have been do something, try something, don't just think about it. So I did it.
I love that answer. Don't just think about it. There's a lesson in that for everybody that's listening to this interview and this show. And let's talk about the story itself, because it's so rich. Moon Luck is really the story of 30 astronauts living on the moon for extended periods. And wow, how interesting, how tough and exciting and everything wrapped into it that you can think of would that be. So tell us a little bit about the story.
Okay, the presumption is that there are 2 bases on the moon, one operated by the Chinese and one by an international consortium of NASA, ESA, which is the European Space Agency, SpaceX, and Blue Origin. So the presumption is that they've been on the moon now for 10 years. We're looking at 20 years from now. And life, I talk a little bit about the life living there, growing plants, doing certain experiments. But to make the story also a little more interesting, and because people are what they are, sometimes it's also a murder mystery. So that's what carries it along and brings in opportunity to talk about living on the moon. At the same time, gives it a little intrigue.
Yeah. And, it's interesting because you are a gifted storyteller, and I think we need to tell the audience about this. You and I, when we spent some time off the air, you told me an interesting thing about writing a script for Star Trek The Next Generation. So The Next Generation, I was a big fan of that show, and to get even that close is phenomenal. What happened there? I mean, wow, that really is a brush with fame.
Well, thank you. That goes back again to my interest in science fiction. I was a science fiction reader growing up, and again, something struck me back when Star Trek: The Next Generation had come out, and I said, I've got this idea. Let me see if I can write a script, which I did. Now, I submitted it. A friend of mine was in the industry. She said that, this is what you've got to do. I submitted the script, and they held on to it for about 6 or 7 months. And unfortunately, the series came to an end. It did not go into the next season. And then I got my script back. So it was my closest brush, as you said, to an opportunity to maybe make a little fame and fortune, but or just being exposed. And it was a very unique story. Because they held on to it for so long, I was informed that they were definitely going to use it, but it just didn't come to fruition.
And then, look, you got struck by moon luck, so I think that was meant to be if we fast forward. And you can get the book on Amazon. Wayne Scott Harrell's talking to us, and Moon Luck is the book. What do you hope people take away from reading your novel?
I would like people to think that while astronauts are very unique and special people, then they're selected for skills and capabilities, that they're still people. And that living on the moon is going to pose challenges, but there are also going to be situations where people will just, unfortunately, sometimes be themselves. You're going to find some animosities. You're going to find some new friendships and relationships, and this would be the cornerstone of the book. At the same time, you get to learn about some of the technology that is current. The science, it may be classified as science fiction, but the science in my book is current state of the art. It's what's happening right now in the fields that NASA and ESA are out there exploring now to apply when they go to the moon or go to Mars.
Yeah, I mean, and again, you bring that into for sure. That's what you're thinking about as you're reading this novel. And you mentioned your experiences, and another thing that we talked about off the air, and you can see that in the characters in the book, is you talked about, to me, spending time in Qatar, and you've been to 38 countries, and you talked about how people just don't even realize what that's like because we have these misconceptions. And what is it like? What is it like to go there? What is it like to be there and be working there?
Oh, very good question. When I first got selected to work there in Qatar, and for those who don't know, Qatar is a small country about the size of Connecticut that sticks off of Saudi Arabia. They're in the Middle East. And I was reluctant to go because, we all hear the things on the news that maybe it's not a great place to go, but they convinced me to try it. I did. Fantastic experience. I loved it. I found the Middle East to be totally unlike my expectations. And I tell people today, whatever you think you know about the Middle East, just forget it. You have to go experience it. I lived in a city called Doha. Only 15% of the population was actually Arab. 85% from all over the world.
Wow.
And these are people I was working with and this is what gave me the exposure, or additional exposure, I should say, is to some wonderful characters, wonderful people that became characters in my book.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to bring back around to, that you had these experiences that then land in Moon Luck, and it's, like I said, the 30 astronauts, that's what made me think about that. Hey, last one, if you could go to space, would you do it?
Absolutely. I'm not reluctant to try things. It's been my life. I've been fortuitous in doing things like making wine, to getting into martial arts, became a pilot. And by the way, some of these things are because of my own son, who gave me a gift, initiated the idea. And I go out and try things, and I just love it. And I would encourage people, I'd encourage your listeners to just out and do it. Don't be afraid.
That's a perfect place to end this. Moonluck is fabulous. It's a great novel. Wayne Scott Harrell, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Kate. It's a pleasure.